Okay, on these pumps, you notice how the pump bearing, this is actually going to be a two-piece. There's a seal, looks like this, sits on top of that bearing. The new bearing that we got, here's a part number if you want it. The new bearing that we got has a built-in seal. And whether you got the two-piece or you got the one-piece, like this, see how the seal is built into it? Even with the one-piece, sometimes they put that in with the seal facing the inside where the rotor goes. Even if you got this style, you're going to want to put this seal on this side, or you want to flip this bearing and put the seal with it on the inside like this. That'll get more oil down here to this bearing, and it'll keep it from going bad. Okay, put the bearing in. You want it just below flush on this side. It's going to stick up on this side. You got one check ball that goes in this side. Make sure that you match your gaskets and you get the right gaskets on here. Some of these have bonded gaskets. I marked the holes that are different. They'll all be on the Patreon side. And you want to make sure that you get the right gasket on the right side. So the gasket that goes on the side towards the check ball will have a big open hole right there. See how this is two holes? If you put this on here, it's not going to seal properly. So make sure that you got that one on this side, and that you got the right gasket for the right gear. And 30 torques for these bolts. Alright, don't want to screw our gasket up, but you see how also has the one for this side has a extra big hole for the bolt, so that you know that it's on the proper side. Okay, you got your rotor guide. You have the rubber seal and the sealing ring here. You need a wiper and the rubber for this side. The wiper goes on the outside, rubber goes on the inside. Make sure that is not sticking up too tall. I have run across some that are, like this one is. I usually try to save the old ones. Either save the old ones or cut those down, because it will keep your slide from working properly. Alright. Alright, our pivot pin. Our spring. They do make a special tool to put that spring in if you feel like wasting your money on it. Ring guide. Want your pump rotor in with the recessed side up. Pump vanes. Now on them gaskets for the valve body, on the bonded ones, if they're coming apart like mine was, if they don't come off in the machine, when you get it in the hot machine, you can buy the gasket wizard from Transtech, or you can get just plain old drain cleaner from the hardware store. It's the same stuff. It really kind of pissed me off when I found out that Transtech was selling, it was the same thing, and they're charging 10 times the amount for it. Make sure it's just got the plain old ingredient that comes in drain cleaner. You don't want all the fancy extra crap that some of them put in there. You just want the plain old. Plain old sodium hydroxide. So put your plate on, put your two 8mm in here. It's ready to go now on our valve body. We got our boost valve. It's the Sonex number for mine. Now yours may be different. And the bypass clutch valve, that's for mine. There's two different ones, like I said, so make sure that you get the right one. You're going to want to pull this valve out. Alright, throw that away. Take your spring that was in the original and put it in here. May need to put some grease on that to hold it, keep it from sliding out. This one's wanting to be a little tough, so put that in there, put your clip in, pull this one out. Make sure that both pieces are there. You got your piece down inside there. Lube up your O-rings. Make sure that that bumper spring is down inside that middle valve, or that recess in that valve. Put your clip back in. You have spring and check valve here, and I have a small filter here. May have to pull that back out of there. I mean, flip this over to get this out of there. May just leave it in there because it's in good shape. There we go. And I think I had that in the wrong spot. I believe this one goes here, the one that only has one filter. It used to be two filters, and when they came out with this one, they only put one filter. And then there's the short side and the long side. The long side faces down. You got the spring and check valve here. I usually give you new check valves, however, do make sure that these are moving in nice and free. I have seen them too large and they will not work properly. The spring and check valve here. And depending on what year you have, you may have 3 of those. This is for 98 to 2003 here. So we got check ball there and there. There, there, and there. Okay, here again we want to make sure we get the right gasket on the right side. So we have an extra large hole here. We want that for our bolt. Separator plate, 3 30 Torx bolts. Do check this sleeve to make sure it's not ring grooved. I think I forgot to mention that on the teardown. Alright, and then our gasket for this side. Make sure that it is big enough for your bolt holes. Okay, you want to make sure that you get the right gasket for the right year. You want to make sure, looking at this port right here, that your gasket fits properly. Now when they packaged this gasket, they kind of screwed this hole up right here. So it's not wanting to stay down. So I think what I'm going to have to do, because I ain't got time to wait on another gasket to show up, I think I'm going to Permatex this gasket to here, use all the bolts to line it up, and put some weight on here to get the glue to hold it in place, and do it that way. Got a washer that goes here. You got a washer that goes here. Do make sure that your I think that this is not ring cut. Make sure that your thermo valve is in here, and that this is not bent. If it is, you're going to want to rework it and make sure that your pins are at the proper height so that they work properly. Have lathe cut seal on your accumulators. Here again, your springs are going to be dependent on what model you have. So make sure that you got the right one in the right hole, and it's the right one for the model that you're working on. Make sure that your pins move freely on your accumulators. Usually I leave the pins out and I put them in after I put the cover on. Let's see how it goes this time. This one here's a O-ring, the others are lathe cut. Make sure that this O-ring is the right one. It's really close to the case connector O-ring. Slightly larger, so make sure that you don't accidentally put the case cover O-ring here. Case connector, case cover. Okay, you have to let this glue dry, so I think we can go ahead and stack the unit though. Let this be drying. Until then, let me get this on here and get it to dry, and then we'll stack the parts in the case. Okay. Get going on this unit. There are seal protectors for this transmission. I do have them. You don't have to use them. It does make things quicker though. The only one that you kind of really need it for is the reverse, and that's the one I usually use. That's this one. It is different than the AX4N, so that one's not going to work if you got it. Here's our spring cage. Look on your snap rings, there will be a taper to the tips of it. You want the short end, it's going to be angled like that. You want the short end up. All the bushings have already been put in. When this goes into the case, there's this bearing here, it's going to sit on top. This washer here has 3 tabs. It pops into there. When you get the proper end clearance, this race goes on the back here. Pop these 2 seals out right here. Be careful when you're doing it that you don't gouge it, but you just get a screwdriver in here and you can pop these things out. You just don't want to be in so far that you gouge that thing up. Get new ones in the kit. And get you a socket that fits and drive them all the way down. Get you a little bit of lube on there and kind of lube those things up a little bit. Alright, when we go down into the case, here's a beveled snap ring. These are selective for your end clearance. This that sits in the case. I think you're allowed like 0.5 thousandths to 1 thousandths clearance there. Here's the big thing you need to take away from this. You want the snap ring not to go all the way back into the groove and set up against the case. But you don't want this snap ring so thick that it comes out here and interferes with the apply of that piston. So they show you how to pry on the case. Actually, you're going to be prying right through here and checking it. I would just, unless you've changed anything, it's not going to change. And unless they put the wrong one in from the factory, you're not going to have a problem. I do want you to replace this every time. You tell which one it is by the ends of the snap ring here. And all that'll be on the Patreon side. The opening is like the 11 o'clock position, I believe. 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock. It's not critical on that. You can get a pair of snap ring pliers in here if you have a big enough pair and put it in. I put it in with a screwdriver. Then once that's in, that goes on. You have your cushion plate and our clutches and steels that are going to get alternated all the way up. Put your opening of your pressure plate at 12 and 6, and then here's the snap ring that holds that all into place. Alright, this one here is a little bit trickier to get in because it's square cut, and it really helps to have that seal protector. You do not have to have it. You can get something around your lip seal and compress it down, stick it in the freezer, and leave it there overnight. Come back and you can probably get it in. You may be able to get it in with the lip seal tool. Even with the seal protector, since this lip is so short, it can be a pain to get it in. This is going to be the hardest one that you're going to deal with. I kind of try to keep even pressure, and if you can get it to spin, that helps a little bit too. And then there's return spring, short end of the taper up again. No, I don't soak my clutches. If you want to soak your clutches, more power to you. I've never seen a difference doing it and not doing it, so don't get your panties in the water about it. Cushion plate, alternate steels and clutches up. Pressure plate. Snap rings are selective. There are different, I believe on this one there are different pressure plates also. Some of them have different pressure plates and snap rings. Some of them have different steels and pressure plates and snap rings. So it'll all be on the Patreon side. Once this goes into the case, this anchor, this fits right inside of here, and then our lock nut goes on that. Okay, the important thing here is once you get this lip seal in, make sure that the lip is not rolled. The lip faces down. Get you a scribe with a hook on it. Get up underneath the lip seal right there and just kind of run that around and make sure that it's rolled up into the position it needs to be in. Okay. Usually this piston will go right in, so normally I just put the ring on it, but I'm going to leave it off for the momentary. Do not forget to take your ring off the old piston. Make sure that your ball is free. Put your ring back on and make sure that it's down all the way. Here's our return spring. The notches need to go around that ball right there. Short end of the taper up again. I'm going to do both pistons at the same time, so make sure that you get this down in the groove that it's supposed to be in. If when you get this in there and you put this on, if you can push down on this and it springs, you got that snap ring in the wrong spot. Okay, this one is a lathe cut seal. It's kind of D-shaped. You can't put that upside down. Okay, this is the one that likes to crack, and usually it's cracked right around in here. Sometimes you get the lamination of this coming off, but usually you'll see it crack right up in here, or right up in here. I always replace this. I don't even mess around with it. Personally, I would put all the pistons in like I do. If you're gonna only do one, do this one. Alright, our return spring, balance piston. Now this one, you're gonna have to be careful with, because as you're going down, this is up. You may need to take your lip seal tool with you, and as you're pushing this piston down, you may need to go around here and get it to go into where it needs to go into. Short end of the taper up again. Okay, some of these bushings you need to be careful of how you put them in. Like this one here has an oiling slot. Make sure that it's lined up. This one here has oiling holes. Make sure that they're lined up. There's two different widths of this bushing, so make sure you get the right one, depending on which one of these you got. On this bushing here, you want to make sure you don't block off those oiling holes right there. I think that's all that you've got to be concerned with on that. Start off with steel and clutch, alternation. Alright, cushion plate. And not all of them have this cushion plate. So if it doesn't have the cushion plate, you know, it takes different things in the valve body, so don't just be swapping stuff around without knowing what fits what. Two-tab washer. You notice there's oblong holes right there. That's where those tabs sit. And two O-rings that go on here. Sprag assembly goes on. Once you get this down, do give that a push and make sure it does not spring. Lip faces down. Make sure it's not rolled. Make sure that ball in your drum is free. Two different pistons here, so make sure that you do get the right one. Your return spring, short end of the taper up. Come on, baby, go down. Now this thing came off tighter than normal too. Usually they just pop right off. So I'm not sure what we got going on right here. There we go. Cushion plate, alternate steels. There, interplanetary. Bearing, planet. Be very careful with the bearing that's down in here. Make sure it's where it needs to be, because if it's sticking out and you go to shove your sun shell in there, it will break it. Snap ring. You don't want the opening of your snap ring in the opening anywhere that you're putting them. That drum. Which drum was it? I think it was the other drum. Anyway, oh, it's right here, I believe. Yeah, you don't want the opening right there. Also on this is another 4-tab washer, and it sits on there. down inside this drum sits this bearing and the selective washer. They show you how to check it with a special tool. I'm going to show you a different way. Every one of these I've ever seen has this red fiber washer. So I wouldn't get too worked up about what they're supposed to be. Every one I've ever seen has always been this red washer here. And this white washer here. So I am going to put this on here just like this. I'm going to measure my distance from here to the top here, and then I'm going to measure, once this is in the case, I'm going to measure from the top of the case where the channel plate sits down to this surface. It's down here, and that's how I'm going to come up with my clearance. I don't have the special tool that they want you to have. And then the distance that we have once this is all together. And this drum is on here. I measure from the channel plate where the channel plate goes to here, and then I measure this distance here from here to here with the washer, and I find out what my clearance is, and that's how I do that. So you can do it however you want to, but that's how I do it. Heater sealing rings. Now, people get worked up sometimes that I don't put grease on my sealing rings. If you have to, you have to. But I choose to not if I can help it, because when I air check this, you're going to want this to expand out. And if you put grease on it, it's going to stay stuck together until that grease melts, and then it'll expand out. So I try to do it without it. You want the sealing ring to go together like this, not like this. And I just give these things a little tweak, and usually they will stay up in the groove. Like that one didn't, but you want to move these out just enough to get it on there, as when you start pulling them apart, they'll tend to want to stay that way. And it should be enough that it'll stay up in there. Drum here, we can go ahead and air check it. You can air check it after you put it in the case, but it's better to do it now. You can actually air check these also if you want to. Just put your support down into here. And it'll Also give you a chance to check if your sealing rings will go. Those bottom ones wanting to be a pain. May have to put some grease on that. Alright, lathe cut seal here. It has a white stripe on it. Servo. And our spring. Lathe cut seal here. Inner and outer spring. All these springs are different depending on what it's fitting into. Lathe cut seal on here. You want this side facing in. And our dowel pin for that. Put that in the case first. Here's our bolt for that. It's the only one that's black. Alright, we'll go down into the case. Here's our ring gear. Faces that way. A fretting ring sits on top. This drum sits on top of that. Alright, down into the case is this bearing. This washer is going to sit on top of that. If you have a speedometer, your speedometer gear is going to go on here, and just line the grooves up with it on your differential. Usually this will stay on there. If need be, put some grease on it. Have our sun gear. This park gear goes like this. This bearing sits on here like that. It all goes on there. Alright, our clutch hub. We have a bearing with the lip faces this way, bearing with the lip faces this way. We have a sealing ring here on our sprocket. And a sealing ring here. Pop that off. Hook and loop. This one's scarf cut like the others. Once you get this into the case, there's a O-ring that has green dots on it like that. It goes in that groove right there. This is your lockup O-ring. You do not want to leave this off. Alright, we got our chain. You'll notice that there are colored links on them. Colored link faces up. Another sprocket. Our servo cover, servo, and spring. Snap ring that holds that in. Alright, sealing rings on here. White ones go on this side, yellow ones go on the other side. These here, if need be, I will put grease on them because I don't need to air check anything through here. Okay, O-rings on our tubes. When we put our pump together, there's an O-ring that goes here, and our last sealing ring goes on here. Alright, get down into the groove. Come on now. There we go. Alright, let me get some of this stuff out my way. Alright, we'll see how this works here. On your stator, the drain hole is at the 6 o'clock position. You go ahead and put your filler tube boot in. I've already changed the linkage seal. While I had the linkage out, like I said, normally I don't take the linkages out because you don't need to. You can just break that piece off of the support and it slides in easier that way. Make sure your case bushing is in. On your linkage, guess I better tighten that down. On your linkage, there's 2 different styles. There's the style where the pieces are on the outside. There's a style where the pieces are on the inside. And none of the pieces will swap out. You have to use it as a set. So make sure you have that all proper. We're going to put our bearing with the lip down and the washer on top. Put your ring gear in. opening at the 6 o'clock. Make sure your fretting ring is in there. If you have a speedometer gear, make sure that your speedometer gear is on your differential. You can go ahead and put your sun gear and park gear and the bearing on. You can put grease on there if you want to hold that in place. There's a cutout here where your band pin is sticking out. That's where that goes. Here we go. Snap ring with the bevel up. Opening is going to be about the 11 o'clock position. Like I said, I don't think it's critical on it. Try to keep from hitting this camera and to put it right in the way. Oops. Alright, like I said, you don't want the snap ring to go all the way up against the case. You do want to make sure it's in the groove, and it should be sticking out just a RCH. Make sure it's not interfering too thick and interfering with the piston here. You can get in that hole and you can check your clearance if you want. I can tell you right now, that's going to be about perfect because it's not all the way up against the case, yet it's not interfering with the piston, so that's what you need. Put your cushion plate in, put your steels and clutches in. Put your opening at the 12 and 6 o'clock position. Put your snap ring in about the 12 o'clock position. Put your band in, put the round end into the anchor down there. Check your sprag, make sure it's turning counterclockwise, locking clockwise. Make sure your bearing's down in there. just wiggle this back and forth. You hear it go down. Your planetary assembly. Our reverse clutch drum feed hole going over here. We're going to have to line this up, and we're going to have to maneuver this to where we can get this in there, because this is going to take a little bit of working with it to get it to go. You put your clutch hub on here and turn it, and it'll get your clutches to line up in the drum. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and get that started in there, making sure we get in that hole. There we go. We're gonna leave our nut off for right now. Our sun shell. Clutch hub. Bearing with the lip down. Drum assembly. Now we can come up with our own spacer. Just measure what the distance is here and subtract that from whatever your measurements are. Okay, it works out to be about 15 thousandths, so we're good. Now we can put our drum in here. Make sure we're all the way down. And put our bar across here, and we can measure for our drum. Put our band in. Put this piece in. Put our support in. Okay, an alternative to doing all that other stuff that you did is you can take your drum and you can measure once you get this bolted up. You can take your drum and move it up and down and check the clearance there, and then you can check the distance from here to here, and that'll give you the same end clearance. Put your washers in, and this one will only line up one way. There we go. Okay, I think our gasket may be dry enough. Actually, I put that in the wrong spot. Alright, colored link on our chain up, and they definitely gave the wrong chain. Okay, we may be in trouble here. And don't forget to change your O-ring on your connect. And make sure that your harness is coming out this side. And that your lineup tab is right there, and that's why I usually put my pins in after, because they're just going to fall out. Make sure your pins are below flush. This goes in this corner. These are your channel plate bolts, 10 millimeters. The long ones here, put a little dab of silicone underneath them. This 13 goes right here. Eight millimeter goes right here. You want to check the other side and make sure your gasket is lined up for your 530 Torx and your two 10 millimeters that come in from the other side. Okay, the 30 Torx on the stator are 80 to 106 inch-pounds. This 8 millimeter is 80 to 160 inch-pounds. The 13 millimeter here is 30 to 33 foot-pounds. This bolt here is 20 to 25. The 10s around here are 17 to 20. The 30 Torx from the front, 98 to 115. The two 10 millimeters from the front are 18 to 23. Alright, put your linkage in. The little tab has to line up in the slot. Put your pump shaft in. Put your valve body down. Put your pump down. Alright, you got 4 different size bolts. You got the really long ones that go in the pump. These go in the valve body. These go down here, and these go in the short spots in the valve body. Alright, 80 to 106 inch-pounds on all your valve body bolts. Plug in your solenoids, temp sensor, make sure it's around there, EPC, and your lockup, make sure that's down around there. Make sure that your pump shaft and your turbine shaft still turn. Alright, this particular one, 2 O-rings on the speed sensor, 8 millimeter that holds it in. There are different speed sensors for different years, so make sure that you match up what came out of it, assuming nobody's worked on it before. 8 millimeter bolt holds that in. Depending on what year you have, what gaskets you have on your pans. These have reusable molded gaskets. They do give you new ones in a Trans-Tech kit. 80 to 106 inch-pounds on the 8 millimeters for the pan. There are different pans for different models. Most of your AX4Ns will have this metal one like this. The 4F50Ns usually have the aluminum and take different bolts. The unit's basically the same except for a few minor things. Valve bodies are different. Pans are different. And 450Ns don't have speedometer gears that I recall any of them having it. Alright, the 6 millimeters, 89 to 106 inch-pounds. The nut is 25 to 34 foot-pounds. You don't have to get super radical about that stuff. Alright, the accumulator, 89 to 132 inch-pounds. Wasn't able to find this right off the bat, but I would imagine these are somewhere around 18 to 20. Here again, it's not super critical on these things. Spring, and servo, and our cover. Snap ring. Short end of the taper up again. They do make a special tool to put this in. Lube up all your lube tubes. £106 on these 30 Torx that hold these brackets down. Alright, you want to make sure that you got the green seal for your filter. And gasket. pan bolts, 106 inch-pounds again. Overdrive servo assembly, 106 inch-pounds on the bolts again, and they are just slightly longer than the pan bolts. Alright, for my seals I put 3M weather strip adhesive on them, and I always get asked when I use these seal drivers who makes them. I have no idea. I bought them a long freaking time ago. I thought I bought them off a tool truck. I've asked all the tool guys, they don't know. I did have a guy came by, I don't know, 30 years ago, I guess it was, and it may have been him that I bought them off of, and I think he made them. Anyway, there's no numbers on them. I have no idea who made them. They are awesome. I always had the plastic ones and they break so easily. Don't forget there's 2 green stripes on your lockup O-ring. Lube up your O-ring. Your filler tube. .8mm that holds that in. Of course, my hold down brackets in the way. Here's the 8 for that. Neutral switch. There's a few different ways that you can line this stupid thing up. If you look on here, there is a line and a line that says neutral. They do make a tool for it that fits in these 2 slots right here and goes in here, and that lines it up, or you can just eyeball it. Yeah, put this on backwards. Yes, I did. You want to make sure it slides on there easily. Don't try to force it on there because it will cut the plastic and then it won't work right. Okay, that's it for this unit. And we'll catch you on the next